Welcome everyone to the Lehigh Valley Community Foundation's Foundation-Directed Grant-Making Information webinar. This is the first time LVCF's Community Investment Team is doing a webinar, and we are excited about using technology to increase access to our Foundation-Directed Grant-Making information. Thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar. Before we begin, I wanted to briefly introduce the community investment staff and our respective roles. I'm Megan Briggs. I'm the Director of Community Investments. I have served in this role since 2017. I oversee grant-making strategy and implementation for our foundation-directed investments. And I also represent the foundation in our community leadership initiatives.
Hello all, my name is Monique Marino, and I serve as the Community Investments Grants Associate. I'm responsible for project management of grant cycles, and I also serve as our technical assistance point of contact. I also provide administrative support for community investments. The goals for this webinar are for our partners to understand the Lehigh Valley Community Foundation's approach in foundation-directed grant making, and to provide information for a more transparent process. We will provide an opportunity to answer questions after this webinar during 2 Q&A sessions. These Q&A sessions will be hosted on Tuesday, October 19th at 11 a.m. and Wednesday, October 27th at 1 p.m.
In this webinar, we'll focus on a few things over the next half hour. One is that we'll give an overview of LVCF's philanthropy and also some historical context regarding our foundation-directed grant making. We'll give an overview of our grant-making platform for this funding year, and we'll also give information about planned open grant application opportunities and how and when to get additional information. We'll also show you how to submit questions in advance of our Q&A sessions, and we'll show you how to register for those events. Before we jump in, I do want to give an overview of LVCF's philanthropy. There are 2 approaches in which grants are made at the Community Foundation, and these 2 approaches differ by who is the primary decision maker on initiating a recommendation for a grant. We have donor-directed grant making and foundation-directed grant making. It's an exciting time at the Community Foundation because we've more than doubled the amount of grants that are going out the door since 2015. We have over 258 funds at the Community Foundation, and as you can see in the 2020 to 2021 cycle, about 6.7 million was made in grants. However, foundation-directed grant making represents a bit over 1 million. And just to demonstrate this a little bit further, here's a graphic that shows the breakdown of donor-defined grant making and foundation-directed grant making by fund type. In donor-defined grant making, we have donor-advised funds, scholarships, and award funds, designated funds, and agency funds, while foundation-directed grant making is largely unrestricted, allowing the foundation to have discretion over the use of those dollars. Somewhere in the middle, we have area of interest funds, where a donor might restrict to a particular area, like substance use, or geography, like Upper Bucks. But there is still discretion over what organizations receive funds and how much. At the foundation, we have worked steadily on our foundation-directed grant-making approaches because we are then able to share our learnings and knowledge with donors who have funds on the donor-defined side in order to help them with their grant-making. And just like everything, while this might look pretty straightforward on paper, in practice, there are all sorts of interlinkages. Anyhow, today's webinar specifically focuses on the foundation-directed grant making. And I also wanted to share a little context of our foundation-directed grant making. In 2013, we took a community partnership grant-making approach. In this approach, we funded with smaller grants, and we provided alternating years on particular funding areas, and we had one cycle each year. In 2017, we launched the Be the Spark campaign. In this campaign, we carved out specific focus areas, and it was the first time that we also utilized our staff position and our knowledge and our resources to raise awareness on these issues. In 2018, we shifted to a community investments approach. And when we transitioned to this approach, it was important for us to evaluate how we might be able to make a bigger impact with our discretionary dollars in foundation-directed grant making. Therefore, we entered a transition phase from 2018 to 2021. During this transition phase, we launched many exciting, innovative pilots, including the nonprofit effectiveness pilot, in which we provided grants to support infrastructure at nonprofit organizations. We championed the 2020 census, and we also responded to the impact of COVID-19 on the Lehigh Valley. We are thrilled and excited to launch a new grant-making platform based on the learning through the past 3 years in this transition phase. And what we are launching will be a more permanent grant-making approach. However, we consider ourselves at the foundation a learning foundation. Therefore, our approaches will always be iterative. Through these transition periods, I wanted to share a summary of some of our key learnings. So first of all, we know it's important to have intentional stated strategies that are proactive in approach, while also carving out reactive funding that can be used more flexibly depending on what is happening in the external environments. A good example of this is COVID. Additionally, we recognize the importance of multi-year and general operating support, offering flexibility in grant funding. We also know that trust and relationships are the cornerstone of this work, and that this work really does move at the speed of trust. We recognize if we want to make an impact with our dollars in partnerships, then we must gain trust and be a trustworthy partner, as well as focus on relationship development. We know that an equity lens is not only critical, it is central to our work as a funder. And after running a pilot for 2 full cycles, capacity building does work and is valued and important as a grant-making strategy. Lastly, community leadership, which I will define a bit later, is a part of our work as a grant maker. We don't want to just cut checks. We want to use our voice, position, and time to make an impact. So as we move forward in this new grant-making approach, I wanted to just demonstrate what would be new or different about this approach. So the first item is that there will be 3 key focus areas in which we are calling our leadership strategy. We will also continue our work through support strategies, which are other important funds that are ongoing at the Community Foundation. However, leadership strategies are where we'll spend the most staff time, resources, and effort in our community leadership efforts. This is how also we are formalizing community leadership into our grant making. We will be spending our staff time as stated in those 3 key focus areas. Lastly, we are integrating an equity lens into our leadership strategies where we have the most influence. The following are leadership grant-making areas of focus. we have arts, culture, and creative economy, capacity building, and youth and families. At this current time, we do not have all model information to share. However, we will share a timeline of open grant opportunities and when and where to find information about these models in the future. For the arts, culture, and creative economy, the Lehigh Valley Community Foundation is very excited to announce that we are the regional partner agency of the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts. Through the Partners in the Arts program, the Community Foundation will work with the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts to distribute grant awards for projects or programs involving artists throughout Region 5, which includes Carbon, Monroe, Lehigh, and Northampton counties. There are 3 programs under this, and that includes Program Stream, which is invitation-only grant opportunity to support art organizations and programs. There is also an entry point to Program Stream, which is a new funding opportunity that aims to provide valuable access to funding for small arts organizations and programs. This will offer a new pathway for small art organizations and programs to receive ongoing unrestricted general operating funds. And lastly is the Creative Entrepreneurs Accelerator Program. This program is designed to pair access to existing small business consulting services with financial resources for creative entrepreneurs who aspire to start their own for-profit business or who operate an existing for-profit micro business. The program's purpose is to help creative entrepreneurs to grow their business audience and revenue. The capacity building program will continue to grant to organizations to strengthen their infrastructure, as well as convene a community of practice. We are currently in the midst of developing that model, and more information will be provided this winter. For our youth and families, we have several area of interest funds that are focused on this particular area. Those area of interest funds include the Edward and Inez Donley Fund, the Bastion Fund, Outdoor Recreation, and some other area of interest funds. We are similarly in the midst of developing these model details, and so more information will be released later this fall or early winter.
Thank you for that overview, Megan. Now I'm just going to share the grant opportunities application windows for the leadership strategies that Megan just reviewed. We want to share this information so you all have it for your calendars. However, please note we will have specific information sessions regarding each of these models closer to the opening of the application dates. For our arts and culture and creative economy leadership strategy, there are 3 different programs. Our program stream is an invitation-only program that will be launched in November through January 15th, 2022. Our point of entry to program stream will also be launched in November until February 15th, 2022. Lastly, as a part of the arts, culture, and creative economy model, our Creative Entrepreneurs Accelerator Program is going to be a rolling program which will be launched in winter of 2022. Our capacity building model, the dates are still tentative. However, and they will be determined. However, at this time, we are planning for them to be launched in January of 2022 through March of 2022. Our youth and families leadership model will be launching January 3rd, 2022 through February 28th, 2022. And again, just a reminder that this information is being shared for your calendars, but we will have specific information sessions regarding each of these models closer to the opening of the application date.
In addition to our leadership grant making, we will continue particular models through our support grant making. These opportunities include the Synergy Fund, which is specifically for arts and culture organizations and open for supporting mergers, acquisitions, and other long-term affiliations. Additionally, we have the Upper Bucks Community Funds. This fund includes 2 area of interest funds that are focused in the Palisades, Quakertown, and Penridge school districts that support arts, education, and science. Lastly, we have the Fund to Fight Substance Use Disorder, which offers support for organizations that are working to provide support in order to combat the increase in substance use.
Thanks, Megan. The grant opportunity application windows for each of the support grant making models Megan just reviewed are listed here. Our Upper Bucks Community Fund will be launched September 24th, 2021 until November 15th of 2021. Our Synergy Fund is a rolling application process for the arts and culture organizations only. And our Fund to Fight Substance Use Disorder, at this time, we do not have an application window listed because it is a multi-year grant. And this grant this year is a renewal process for previously supported organizations.
Another difference in this year's grant making platform is the formalization of community leadership in our community investments work. And the definition in the community foundation industry is as follows. The community foundation is a community partner that creates a better future for all by pursuing the community's greatest opportunities and addressing the most critical challenges, inclusively uniting people, institutions, and resources from throughout the community and producing significant, widely shared, and lasting results. In this definition, I also wanted to focus on a few of these phrases. So one is that the community foundation is a community partner. This acknowledges that the community foundation does not act in isolation. It acts in concert with other community members, sometimes taking the lead, sometimes following, sometimes paving the way for new leaders. The phrase that creates a better future for all acknowledges that the community foundation's constituency is the entire community. Every issue, every cause it embraces has some connection to the greater good while being mindful of how race, class, culture, and power influences and affects decisions. By pursuing the community's greatest opportunities and addressing the most critical challenges, acknowledges that the community foundation can be counted on to pursue the things that matter the most, no matter how challenging or difficult. You can see these examples through our work in Census 2020 and also Project Equity. Inclusively uniting people, institutions, and resources from throughout the community. This acknowledges how the Community Foundation goes about its business in the open and ensuring broad participation. It also recognizes that the Community Foundation is well suited to assemble and leverage resources. Lastly, and producing significant, widely shared, and lasting results. This acknowledges that the Community Foundation looks beyond quick fixes and innovative pilot projects, and that it has the staying power to reach long-term results. We are very pleased to be integrating community leadership into particularly our 3 leadership grant-making strategies. And through our 3 models here, we've provided a few examples of different types of initiatives and collaborations that demonstrate how we are utilizing our community leadership at the Community Foundation. In arts, culture, and creative economy, we are involved in the Any Given Child Bethlehem Coalition. We are also on the Festival Unbound Council. In capacity building, we had launched in collaboration Project Equity with Faces International and the United Way of Greater Lehigh Valley. This initiative brought together 37 social sector leaders to have discussions around how inequity shows up in the social sector and develop deeper relationships. We also convene the Reinventing Our Communities program through the Philadelphia Federal Reserve. This program focuses on convening partners in order to address an equitable recovery for particularly Black, Indigenous, and people of color business owners. We also serve on the strategic response team, and we co-lead the technical assistance group with the Volunteer Center of the Lehigh Valley. Lastly, we participate in the funders group. In youth and families, we currently serve on the Allentown NPP. And these different areas really are a demonstration of current initiatives, but as we launch this grant-making platform, we'll be actively searching for different ways and different initiatives and different collaboratives in which we can utilize our staff time to participate in different types of work going on in the Lehigh Valley. Another big difference in this year's grant-making platform is our work to integrate an equity lens in our foundation-directed grant-making. Last year, the Lehigh Valley Community Foundation put out a unity statement in the summer of 2020. This unity statement stated that the foundation is a learning foundation committed to continuing our foundation's equity journey. Since then, we have taken several actions towards integrating an equity lens in our foundation's work. First of all, we did spend some time in self-examination at our own foundation. Our board members have gone through an equity learning series. Additionally, all staff will be participating in the same learning series. As previously mentioned, we did co-launch Project Equity. We have convened the Reinventing Our Communities, both which have a strong focus on equitable outcomes. And lastly, we are in the midst of establishing benchmarking, utilizing our past foundation-directed grant-making in order to track our progress in this area in the future.
To dive deeper into our benchmarking project, this benchmarking project is tracking our progress in utilizing an equity lens in our foundation-directed grant-making with a data-driven approach. It's important to hold ourselves accountable as a foundation, and it is also a tool to help us increase our transparency and to share our journey with our partners. As Megan mentioned, the Community Foundation is looking at our past foundation-directed grant-making. We're also establishing a historical record of how many grants and how much money was distributed to organizations that are led by individuals who identify as Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ, and/or people with a disability. We are also identifying how much was distributed to organizations that expressly identify a specific historically marginalized population in their work. We'll use this information to inform funding distributions in current and future years. Lastly, our model design for leadership grant making is to ensure that we create funding models that expressly name equity as a priority, meaning that This is how we are going to be modeling our grants to help us accomplish that. The way that we create the process for model implementation will increase access and remove barriers for applicants. Traditionally, many applications were received in written form. The foundation is exploring ways of including video and audio options in our grant applications. Now, for more information on our open grant opportunities, I mentioned earlier in this webinar that we plan to host information sessions that are specific to our leadership initiatives. So our arts, culture, and creative economy leadership initiative, we plan on hosting an information session in November of 2021. Our youth and families, we will host an information session in December of 2021. For capacity building, our information session is to be determined at the moment or to be announced. It will be tentatively right now, we're planning for December of 2021 or early January 2022. And lastly, our Upper Bucks Community Fund and our Synergy Fund are, the information is by request only. For those interested in applying and sending in a grant application, the foundation utilizes Foundant, which is our online application portal. In order to use Foundant, you will need an organization profile and a user profile. If you do not have one already, you'll need to create one, and you can always email me at monique@lvcfoundation.org if you have questions or need assistance with creating those profiles. You can also access the Lehigh Valley Community Foundation website for an application link to get to Foundant, along with instructions on how to navigate through Foundant. Please do not create a login if you already have one. Again, I encourage you to send me an email if you have any questions or need any help. For questions in regards to our Q&A session that you'd like to register for and send in questions, you can utilize the link listed here on this slide. Again, our Q&A sessions will be on Tuesday, October 19th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Wednesday, October 27th from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. We look forward to hearing from you all, and please don't forget to register for the Q&A sessions.
Additionally, you can either submit Q&A session questions in advance using the submission form that is in your email along with this webinar, or you can also just show up to the Q&A session and ask questions then. Either is completely fine. We look forward to seeing you at those Q&A sessions. So at the end, we just wanted to say thank you very much for spending this half an hour with us to kind of go over what our new grant making platform looks like this upcoming year. We are really excited about the work that we have been doing, and we're really excited to launch this new approach. And we appreciate everybody's patience and also partnership over the last few years during our transition period. Thank you so much.
We look forward to answering your questions during the Q&A sessions. Thank you for your time.